The cameras flash, the whispers grow louder, and the tension in Atlanta feels like it could crack the pavement. Tonight, we're diving into the scandal that has left fans gasping, families divided, and one woman shattered beyond repair. Rasheeda Frost, the woman who has stood by Kirk through years of heartbreak, betrayal, and whispers, has finally reached her breaking point. And the reason? A wedding that no one saw coming, yet everyone is now talking about. Kirk Frost has officially tied the knot with Jasmine Washington. And the fallout is nothing short of explosive. Imagine it, a man who once begged for forgiveness, who promised loyalty after countless rumors, now standing proudly beside the very woman who was at the center of his most infamous cheating scandal. The cameras might have captured the smiles, the rings, the champagne, but behind the scenes, tears, slammed doors, and a confession that shook Rasheeda to her core. "I'll never forgive him," she reportedly whispered through trembling lips, her voice cracking under the weight of betrayal. And those words weren't just directed at Kirk, they were a declaration to the world. A scream from a woman whose trust had been broken for the last time, friends say. Rasheeda's breakdown wasn't just about the marriage, it was about the years of lies stacking up like bricks until the weight finally crushed her. The internet erupted within minutes of the news dropping. Fans flooded social media with outrage, confusion, and pure disbelief. How could Kirk betray Rasheeda so publicly, so shamelessly? Some fans demanded answers, others demanded justice, and many simply sat in stunned silence as the love story they thought they knew turned into a nightmare soap opera unfolding in real time. But this isn't just about two people, it's about a family ripped apart, friendships destroyed, and a reality TV empire that may never look the same again. Stay tuned, because this story isn't just scandal, it's heartbreak, revenge, and a fight for dignity in the face of public humiliation. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The night Kirk and Jasmine's wedding news broke, Atlanta felt like it had been struck by lightning. The streets buzzed, the blogs went wild, and fans who had once prayed for Rasheeda and Kirk to weather every storm were left holding their breath, wondering how this story could take such a devastating turn. In the glow of wedding candles and whispered vows, Rasheeda's entire world crumbled. She had fought through years of humiliation, through whispers in back alleys and endless online shade. But this was the ultimate betrayal. When Kirk's pictures with Jasmine surfaced, showing them smiling hand in hand, Rasheeda's silence said more than any words ever could. Those who were close to her say she didn't scream at first, she didn't throw things, she simply sat still, staring at the images as if her heart had been ripped out in real time. Her friends describe her breaking down later, sobbing into her hands, saying over and over, after everything, he still chose her. But this wasn't just a story about a broken marriage, was the story of a man who had built his reputation on charm and manipulation, and a woman who had built hers on resilience and strength. For years, fans had watched Rasheeda hold it together on screen, smiling when she wanted to cry, defending Kirk when the world pointed fingers at him. They had seen her try to patch up their marriage after cheating scandals, after side babies, after public humiliation that would have broken most people. But everyone has a breaking point. And sources say this wedding was Rasheeda's. Even before the official announcement, whispers circled the reality TV sets. Jasmine was reportedly flaunting a ring months ago, but no one dared believe it could be true. Now, with the news confirmed, all those whispers suddenly made sense. Kirk's decision didn't just shock Rasheeda, it divided the entire love and hip-hop circle. Friends who had once smiled at family dinners were now forced to pick sides. Some, like Carly Red, were quick to defend Rasheeda, publicly blasting Kirk's actions online. Others whispered that Rasheeda had ignored too many red flags, that this ending was inevitable. The cast itself became a battlefield, with tensions running so high that producers allegedly had to stop filming during one heated argument when Rasheeda confronted Kirk directly. She reportedly screamed across the room, her voice shaking with both fury and heartbreak. "You made me look like a fool for years. And now you marry the woman who ruined everything." Those words echoed in the studio, and even the cameras seemed to freeze in disbelief. Behind the scenes, Kirk played it cool, brushing off the accusations with the same smug confidence that had carried him through countless controversies. He claimed he was simply following his heart, that Jasmine made him feel alive again. But fans weren't buying it. Social media exploded with hashtags like #JusticeForRasheeda and #KirkTheVillain, with thousands demanding answers. Why had Kirk dragged Rasheeda through years of lies only to abandon her so publicly? Why had Jasmine, who once seemed like a side character in their drama, suddenly been elevated to wife status. Too many, it wasn't love, it was betrayal served. Cold Rasheeda's breakdown didn't just stop with tears. Those closest to her revealed she began shutting people out, isolating herself in her home for days at a time. She was said to be wrestling not just with heartbreak, but with the embarrassment of being betrayed so openly, in front of millions of fans who had once rooted for her. Friends begged her to hold her head high, to reclaim her narrative, but Rasheeda reportedly whispered through swollen eyes, "How do you hold your head high when the whole world just saw it get bowed in shame?" That raw vulnerability sent shockwaves through her circle. Meanwhile, Jasmine wasn't silent. In fact, she embraced the role of Kirk's new wife with a boldness that shocked even her own friends. Rumors say she flaunted the marriage on social media with cryptic captions like, "Finally chose the right one," and "Real love wins in the end." Those posts weren't just aimed at her followers, they were daggers aimed straight at Rasheeda. Fans called it disrespectful, cruel, and unnecessary, but Jasmine seemed unbothered by the backlash. To her, she had won a battle that had been brewing for years. Some even claimed she had already begun calling herself Mrs. Frost long before the vows were exchanged, flaunting her victory in the faces of those who doubted her. This only added fuel to the fire of Rasheeda's pain. Imagine scrolling through your phone and seeing not just your husband, but your husband's mistress turned wife posting smug captions as if your years of sacrifice meant nothing. That's exactly what Rasheeda endured, and fans could feel her heartbreak bleeding through the silence she maintained publicly. Blogs dissected every single one of Jasmine's posts, every cryptic line, every photo, and connected them back to Rasheeda's story. The narrative was clear. Jasmine had snatched the crown, and she wanted the world to know it. As the dust settled from the wedding announcement, new twists began to emerge. Rumors of Kirk and Jasmine planning a reality spin-off started circulating, leaving fans enraged at the idea of profiting off Rasheeda's pain. The very thought that Kirk could parade his new marriage on TV, turning betrayal into entertainment, left many vowing to boycott. Yet, ironically, the drama only pulled in more attention. The higher the outrage climbed, the more valuable the storyline became. Kirk, ever the opportunist, seemed to thrive off the attention, smirking in interviews and brushing aside the pain he had left in his wake. Rasheeda, however, wasn't just mourning a marriage, she was mourning the years she had invested, the empire she had helped build alongside Kirk, and the trust she had given him that had been shattered again and again. Those close to her say she questioned everything: her marriage, her brand, even her friendships. Was anyone truly on her side, or had they all just been waiting for this inevitable collapse? Every whispered conversation, every shady glance on set suddenly felt like a betrayal too, compounding the pain she was already enduring, and in the middle of it all, the fans kept the fire alive. Thousands flooded Rasheeda's posts with messages of love and support, begging her not to let Kirk's betrayal define her. Others urged her to spill the tea herself, to expose the truth behind the wedding and reclaim her voice. The streets of Atlanta were buzzing, the blogs couldn't stop posting, and the Frost family name had never been more controversial. What had once been a power couple had now become the biggest scandal reality TV had ever seen, and Rasheeda was left standing in the ruins. Her heart shattered, but her spirit not entirely extinguished, because while Rasheeda may have whispered, "I'll never forgive him," those same whispers hinted at something more, something brewing deep inside her, a fire that hadn't been put out just yet. And as Kirk and Jasmine paraded their marriage like a trophy, Rasheeda was quietly planning her next move, one that no one could have predicted, and one that would shake this scandal to its very core. The days following Kirk and Jasmine's wedding became a battlefield of emotions, headlines, and broken loyalties. Rasheeda, who had always been the one to hold her head high and play the role of the strong wife, was suddenly thrust into a storm that even she couldn't control. Cameras caught her leaving a lounge in Atlanta late one night, oversized sunglasses covering her swollen eyes, her friends shielding her from the swarm of paparazzi, but no amount of protection could hide the fact that she was crumbling inside. Witnesses say she kept muttering, almost to herself, "After everything I gave him. After everything I sacrificed." That line replayed across gossip blogs, echoing like the haunting chorus of a song nobody could forget. Meanwhile, Kirk and Jasmine weren't hiding. In fact, they were flaunting. They were seen at dinner parties, holding hands, and laughing as if the chaos around them didn't exist. Jasmine was spotted showing off her ring to friends in a crowded Atlanta hotspot, her voice loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "He's finally mine," she said proudly, clinking glasses of champagne. Those words weren't just a toast, they were a slap in Rasheeda's face, and everyone knew it. Social media lit up instantly. Fans called Jasmine heartless, shady, and the ultimate homewrecker. But Jasmine didn't seem to care. Every post, every appearance screamed that she was the winner in this twisted love triangle. And she wasn't backing down. The Love and Hip Hop cast began to unravel under the pressure. During a group scene meant to be lighthearted, Carly Red reportedly lashed out at Jasmine, yelling, "You destroyed a family and you're proud of it." Jasmine didn't flinch, she smirked, tossed her hair, and fired back. "Don't be mad because I got what I wanted and you never could." Gasps filled the room, and even production staff struggled to keep control. The tension was unbearable. The scene was so intense it had to be cut short, but word leaked out, fueling the already raging fire online. Fans couldn't believe the audacity, and the backlash against Jasmine only grew stronger. But Rasheeda wasn't just facing Jasmine, she was also facing Kirk. Days after the wedding, she confronted him in a private sit-down that quickly turned into a shouting match. Sources close to production claim Rasheeda slammed her hand on the table, tears streaming down her face, yelling, "You've embarrassed me for the last time, Kirk. Do you even realize what you've done to our family? To our kids?" Kirk, ever calm and calculating, simply leaned back and said, "You'll get over it, you always do." Those words shattered her. It was the casual cruelty, the indifference, that finally broke the last thread holding her to him. News of the confrontation leaked online, and fans were livid. Hashtags like #TeamRasheeda and #BoycottKirk started trending. The betrayal wasn't just personal anymore, it had become a cultural moment, one where fans across the globe felt Rasheeda's pain like it was their own. Memes flooded the internet, turning Kirk into the villain of the year. People dissected every past clip of him, every shady comment he ever made, building the case that this wasn't just a mistake, it was his pattern, his legacy. And just when fans thought the drama had peaked, another twist hit the storyline. Rumors swirled that Jasmine wasn't content with just being Kirk's wife, she wanted to step into Rasheeda's shoes completely. Sources claimed she had begun eyeing Rasheeda's businesses, hinting that Kirk was helping her make moves to take over. Whispers of Jasmine wanting to launch her own boutique and even her own music surfaced, with Kirk backing her up financially. Too many. It looked like he wasn't just abandoning Rasheeda emotionally, he was dismantling everything they had built together and handing it to another woman. Rasheeda's friends were outraged, begging her to fight back. "Don't let him take everything from you," one close friend allegedly told her. "You built this empire, not him." But Rasheeda, still reeling from the betrayal, was caught between rage and despair. She wanted to burn it all down, yet part of her still clung to the years she had invested, the memories she couldn't erase. Her silence became the loudest scream, and fans could feel her heartbreak through every quiet post, every absence from the spotlight. But silence doesn't last forever. Those around her say Rasheeda began to shift, her pain slowly hardening into something else resolve. She started taking late-night meetings with lawyers, strategists, and even producers who whispered about her launching her own solo project. She wasn't just thinking about surviving this scandal, she was planning to rise from it in a way that would leave both Kirk and Jasmine stunned. Yet Kirk wasn't worried. He strutted around Atlanta as if untouchable, telling anyone who would listen that Rasheeda would never leave for real. His arrogance became his shield, but also his weakness. Because while Kirk was busy basking in the glow of his new marriage, Rasheeda was preparing for a comeback no one saw coming. And when the next chapter of this messy saga unfolded, the tables would start to turn in ways neither Kirk nor Jasmine ever expected. The storm only grew wilder as the weeks went on. What was once a private heartbreak had turned into a public circus, and every move Kirk, Jasmine, or Rasheeda made was dissected under a microscope. The blogs kept the story alive day and night, and fans couldn't look away. Rasheeda, once the face of strength and resilience, was now painted as the tragic heroine, the woman wronged. But behind closed doors, she wasn't just sitting in silence, she was boiling. One night, cameras caught her storming into a dinner party where Kirk and Jasmine were making their first official appearance as husband and wife. The room went silent when Rasheeda walked in. All eyes locked on her as she stood there, poised but trembling with fury. "So this is what you left me for?" She spat, her voice low but sharp enough to cut through the entire room. Jasmine tried to keep her composure, but she couldn't resist smirking, clutching Kirk's arm tighter as if staking her claim. "Don't be mad at me, Rasheeda," Jasmine purred. Be mad at him for finally being honest about who he really loves. Gasps erupted around the table. Even the cameras seemed to shake with the tension. Rasheeda exploded. Honest. You call sneaking around, lying, humiliating me on national TV being honest. You destroyed my family, Jasmine, and you walk around here like you earned something. You earn nothing but a man who doesn't even know what loyalty means. The room grew hotter, the air thick with anger. Kirk tried to interject, raising his hands like a peacemaker, but his calm tone only made it worse. Y'all need to stop. I did what I had to do. I chose happiness. But his words landed like stones on Rasheeda's chest. She glared at him, her eyes burning with tears, and whispered, "You chose selfishness. You chose destruction. And one day, you'll see what you've lost." The scene spiraled into chaos. Friends jumped in to separate the women, glasses clinked as people backed away, and producers reportedly shut the cameras off just to stop the fight from escalating further. But the damage was done. By morning, every gossip page had the story. Rasheeda crashes Kirk and Jasmine's dinner, confrontation turns ugly, and if fans weren't already angry, they were now livid. Social media drowned in hashtags like hashtag #RASHEEDA deserves better and hashtag cancel Kirk, with fans demanding that Rasheeda walk away for good. But Kirk wasn't done rubbing salt in the wound. Days later, he was spotted on Instagram Live with Jasmine, laughing about haters and claiming they were too blessed to be stressed. He even joked, "We got the ring, the vows, and the future. Let them be mad." Jasmine giggled beside him, showing off her ring to the camera, while fans bombarded the comments with rage. Thousands of viewers spammed the live with messages calling Kirk disrespectful and Jasmine delusional. But Kirk thrived off the attention, smirking as if every angry comment was just proof of their power. Rasheeda, however, had begun shifting gears. While Kirk flaunted, she planned. Sources whispered that she had begun documenting her side of the story, meeting secretly with producers to discuss a tell-all special. The idea alone sent fans into a frenzy. If Rasheeda speaks, it's over for them, one blog declared. Rumors of Rasheeda finally breaking her silence only fueled anticipation, with fans begging her to expose everything. But the next twist was even messier. Reports surfaced that Rasheeda had discovered financial documents proving Kirk had been funneling money from their shared businesses into accounts tied to Jasmine. The betrayal wasn't just emotionally, it was financial. Friends say Rasheeda nearly collapsed when she saw the numbers. Realizing that the empire she had poured her blood, sweat, and tears into was being used to fund the very marriage that broke her. "He used me to build her up," she reportedly cried, her voice breaking. "Everything I built, he gave away." That discovery lit a fire inside Rasheeda that heartbreak couldn't extinguish. Betrayal had wounded her, but injustice was making her furious. She began consulting lawyers, tightening her circle, and preparing to strike back. For the first time, fans began to see a shift. The posts she made online weren't sad anymore, they were cryptic, sharp, almost defiant. Captions like, "Queen never loses her crown" and "Watch me rise" began to appear, sending fans into a frenzy of speculation. Was Rasheeda finally about to fight back? Meanwhile, cracks were already forming in Kirk and Jasmine's fairy tale. Whispers suggested Kirk had been spotted arguing with Jasmine outside of a club. His voice raised while she tried to calm him down. Some claimed he stormed off, leaving her standing alone while paparazzi snapped pictures. The perfect image they had painted online was already starting to fade, and fans were quick to point it out. "Didn't take long," one fan commented under the photos. "Once a cheater, always a cheater." The pressure was building, and everyone knew it. The scandal wasn't slowing down, it was only escalating. Rasheeda had been humiliated, yes, but she was also plotting. And with every cryptic post, every lawyer meeting, and every whisper of betrayal she uncovered, it became clearer that this story wasn't anywhere near over. In fact, it was only just beginning to turn in her favor. Because the woman everyone thought was broken was starting to rise again. And her comeback was about to make Kirk and Jasmine regret ever underestimating her. The air in Atlanta was electric, heavy with rumors and anticipation. Everyone wanted to know what Rasheeda would do next. She had been silent for too long, and silence was never her style. The woman fans knew the fighter, the hustler, the queen of resilience wasn't someone who stayed down. And now, it seemed like she was ready to flip the script. The first sign came when Rasheeda was spotted out in public for the first time since the wedding bombshell. She stepped into a crowded Atlanta boutique opening, her outfit flawless, her head high, and her smile just enough to hint that she wasn't broken anymore. The cameras flashed wildly, capturing every second of her reemergence. Reporters screamed questions. Rasheeda, do you have a message for Kirk? Rasheeda, are you done with him for good? She didn't answer directly, but her cryptic response sent shockwaves through the gossip mill. With a calm, steady voice, she said, "Sometimes the biggest revenge is success." Those words alone became the headline of the week. Behind the scenes, though, the tension hadn't cooled. Kirk and Jasmine continued flaunting their marriage, with Jasmine posting selfies tagged #Mrs. Frost and captions dripping with smugness. One post in particular caused chaos. A photo of her hand resting on Kirk's chest, her massive ring catching the light, with the caption, "Finally home where I belong." Fans lost it. Comments poured in by the thousands, dragging Jasmine for being tone-deaf and messy, but the one comment everyone noticed. Rasheeda herself liked the post only too quickly, unlike it minutes later. Screenshots spread instantly, sparking debates. Was she mocking them? Was it an accident? Or was it a subtle way of saying she wasn't afraid to watch them crumble up close? Meanwhile, inside their marriage, cracks widened. Witnesses claimed Jasmine confronted Kirk after a club appearance, furious that he was being too friendly with another woman. Voices were raised, and although Kirk brushed it off with his usual arrogance, people close to the couple whispered that Jasmine was already realizing the nightmare of being with him. She thought she won, one insider explained, but now, she's starting to see what Rasheeda lived through all those years. Those whispers lit up social media like wildfire. Fans dragged Jasmine, writing things like, "Congratulations, you won the same pain Rasheeda had, and you thought you were different, but he's still Kirk." Rasheeda, however, wasn't waiting for their downfall. She was planning her own comeback. Reports say she began meeting with producers about launching a new business venture, one that would cement her as an independent mogul, separate from Kirk's shadow. The idea, a lifestyle brand built entirely around her story of survival and resilience. She wasn't just going to tell her truth, she was going to sell it, own it, and profit from it. Her closest friends encouraged her, with Carly Red allegedly saying, "This is your time. Turn that pain into power. Show them who the real boss is." But the drama didn't stop there. During a family gathering meant to bring calm, the tension exploded again. Kirk showed up, uninvited, hoping to smooth things over with their kids, but Rasheeda wasn't having it. Eyewitnesses say she confronted him in front of everyone, her voice trembling with rage. "You think you can waltz in here, like nothing happened? You married her, Kirk. You don't get to play family man on the weekends." Kirk tried to defend himself, saying, "I'll always be their father, and you can't erase me from their lives." But Rasheeda's clapback silenced the room. "You erased yourself the moment you said 'I do' to her." That line became the quote of the season, plastered on every blog and reposted across every fan page. It wasn't just a dig, it was a dagger, one that cut straight into Kirk's carefully constructed image. Fans flooded comment sections with praise for Rasheeda's strength, with many calling it the line that ended Kirk Frost. But the ultimate twists came when leaked audio surfaced online. A voice memo, allegedly recorded by someone close to Jasmine, caught Kirk admitting that he still loved Rasheeda. In the clip, he could be heard saying, "I know I messed up, but Rasheeda will always be the one." The internet exploded. Fans dissected every second of the clip, arguing whether it was authentic, but the damage was already done. Jasmine was humiliated, Rasheeda was vindicated, and Kirk was once again exposed as a man who couldn't keep his loyalty straight. Jasmine's response was instant and furious. She posted a video on her Instagram, her voice shaking as she tried to deny the rumors, saying, "People just don't want to see us happy. Y'all can keep making up lies, but this marriage is real." But her eyes, red and swollen from crying, told another story. For the first time, Jasmine didn't look like the confident winner. She looked like the woman who had finally realized that Kirk Frost's love was a curse, not a prize. And as Jasmine scrambled to save face, Rasheeda stayed silent, her silence now louder than ever. Fans speculated that she was biding her time, preparing to drop her own truth bomb. And when she finally did, the entire narrative would shift forever. Because if there's one thing everyone knew about Rasheeda, it was this: she might bend, but she never breaks. And this time, her rise would leave Kirk and Jasmine in ruins. The leaked audio was like gasoline on an already raging fire. Blogs dissected it frame by frame, podcasts replayed Kirk's voice over and over, and fans flooded comment sections with their own takes. He'll never stop loving Rasheeda, one fan wrote. Jasmine thought she won, but she only inherited the heartbreak. Within hours, hashtags like hashtag #StillTeamRasheeda and hashtag #KirkExposed were trending. It was chaos, pure and unfiltered, and once again, Rasheeda was at the center of it all. But Rasheeda wasn't celebrating. Sources close to her say she listened to the audio in private, her face unreadable, her emotions locked behind a wall she had carefully built. "I don't want his words," she reportedly told a friend. "I wanted his actions years ago. Now, all this means nothing." Yet even as she dismissed Kirk's confession, those around her could see the cracks. Deep down, the pain was fresh, all over again. She had fought so hard to move forward, but the constant reminders kept dragging her back into the storm. Meanwhile, Jasmine's world was unraveling. What was supposed to be her fairy tale marriage was quickly turning into a public nightmare. Paparazzi caught her leaving a restaurant alone, mascara smudged, her phone pressed to her ear as she shouted into the night. Witnesses claimed she was yelling at Kirk, accusing him of embarrassing her, of making her look like a fool in front of the entire world. The irony wasn't lost on fans. This was the exact humiliation Rasheeda had endured for years. Now Jasmine was tasting it herself, and the world was watching every second. Kirk, on the other hand, tried to play both sides. In one interview, he brushed off the audio leak as taken out of context, insisting he was committed to his marriage. But just days later, he was spotted liking old photos of Rasheeda on social media, fueling speculation that his feelings hadn't gone anywhere. Fans dragged him mercilessly, calling him a clown, a manipulator, and the man who doesn't deserve either woman. And just when the story seemed like it couldn't twist any further, it did. Word leaked that Rasheeda had been offered her own spin-off show. Producers, recognizing the tidal wave of support behind her, wanted to give her a platform to tell her truth on her terms. The idea sent Kirk spiraling, with insiders claiming he tried to interfere behind the scenes, worried that Rasheeda's voice would destroy his carefully curated image. But Rasheeda wasn't budging this time. For once, she had the upper hand, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. During a private family meeting with their kids present, things finally boiled over. Kirk showed up, determined to prove he could still play the role of father and husband, even if he was married to someone else. But Rasheeda wasn't having it. Eyewitnesses say the confrontation turned brutal. "You don't get to sit here like you're still the man of this house," Rasheeda snapped, her voice trembling but fierce. "You made your choice. You walked out. So stay gone." The kids sat in stunned silence, and even Kirk's usual arrogance seemed to falter. For the first time, he had no comeback, no smug retort. He just sat there, staring at the woman he had betrayed one too many times. The fallout was immediate. Fans hailed Rasheeda as a queen, a woman finally standing tall after years of being dragged through the mud. Clips of her fiery words went viral, remixed into TikTok's memes, and even motivational edits. "Stay gone" became the phrase of the season, a rallying cry for anyone who had ever been wronged in love. But Jasmine wasn't ready to fade quietly into the background. In a desperate attempt to reclaim control of the narrative, she sat down for an exclusive interview. Tears streamed down her face as she insisted that her marriage was real, that Kirk was misunderstood, and that she wasn't the villain fans made her out to be. Yet the more she spoke, the more fans turned against her. "This isn't love, it's desperation," one commenter wrote. "She's crying because she finally realizes the prize she fought for was just a curse." The tension reached its peak when Rasheeda finally broke her silence online. She posted a single photo, herself standing tall in a sleek black dress, her caption short but devastating. "The crown was never his to give, it was always mine." The internet went wild. Millions liked the post, celebrities reposted it, and fans declared that Rasheeda had officially risen from the ashes. And in that moment, it became clear, the story wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about survival, strength, and a woman who refused to be broken, no matter how much the world tried to watch her fall. Kirk and Jasmine's marriage was already crumbling under the weight of its own lies, but Rasheeda, she was rising higher than ever before, her dignity intact, her empire stronger, and her heart, though scarred, still beating with fire. The question now wasn't whether Rasheeda would survive, it was how high she would climb, and how badly Kirk and Jasmine would regret underestimating her when she finally took her throne back in full. The energy in Atlanta had shifted. What started as a scandal that nearly broke Rasheeda now looked like the catalyst for her greatest rise. The streets buzzed with chatter at salons, at bars, In every corner where love and hip-hop fans gathered, her name was on everyone's lips. The woman who had been humiliated in front of millions was no longer painted as the victim. She was being celebrated as the survivor. The warrior who stood tall while Kirk and Jasmine drowned in the chaos they created. But behind the glamour and social media wins, the tension within Kirk and Jasmine's marriage was reaching a breaking point. More footage began to leak this time. Shaky cell phone video of the two arguing outside a popular Atlanta club. Jasmine could be heard yelling, "You still love her, admit it," while Kirk, visibly frustrated, shoved his hands into his pockets and muttered, "You don't know what you're talking about." The video spread like wildfire. Fans replayed it endlessly, analyzing every word, every gesture, turning it into undeniable proof that their so-called happy marriage was already unraveling. Meanwhile, Rasheeda stayed cool. Instead of messy public spats, she focused on her work, showing up to events looking flawless, her confidence glowing brighter than ever. But when she finally sat down for her long-rumored tell-all interview, the world stopped to listen. Sitting in a dimly lit studio, her voice steady but raw, she opened up about everything: the betrayal, the heartbreak, the humiliation. It wasn't just about him choosing someone else, she said, her eyes glistening. It was about all the years I believed in something that wasn't real. I carried our family, our brand, our love story, and he carried lies. That's the part I'll never forgive. The interview went viral instantly. Fans praised her honesty, her strength, and the way she refused to let bitterness consume her. Clips flooded TikTok with fans lip-syncing her lines and creating edits that painted her as a phoenix rising from the ashes. Celebrities even chimed in, sending her messages of support. Rasheeda's story wasn't just her own anymore. It became a symbol of resilience for anyone who had ever been betrayed. Kirk, however, couldn't handle the heat. In an attempt to defend himself, he went live on Instagram once again, trying to paint Rasheeda as dramatic and insisting he deserved happiness too, but fans weren't buying it. The comments section turned against him in seconds, flooded with messages like, "You had happiness and you destroyed it," and "Stop embarrassing yourself, Kirk." Even Jasmine seemed distant in the background of the live, her smile forced, her body language screaming discomfort. Then came the ultimate twist: the revelation that Jasmine had discovered. Kirk was still secretly texting Rasheeda late at night. Screenshots leaked online, showing Kirk sending messages like, "I didn't mean for it to go this way, and you'll always be my family." Fans erupted. Jasmine was humiliated, Rasheeda was vindicated, and Kirk was once again exposed as the man who couldn't commit to anyone but himself. The betrayal had come full circle, and now Jasmine was living the exact nightmare she once laughed about. Rasheeda's response was iconic. Without saying a word about the texts, she posted a photo of herself sipping champagne with the caption, "Some lessons you only learn the hard way." Fans went insane, declaring it the ultimate mic drop moment. The post broke records on her page, cementing her as the queen of silent shade. At this point, the Frost name was no longer a symbol of power, it was a soap opera unraveling in real time. Kirk's reputation was in shambles, Jasmine's credibility was gone, and Rasheeda's star had never shined brighter. She wasn't just surviving the scandal, she was owning it, transforming her pain into power and turning the narrative completely in her favor. And yet, even as the dust began to settle, questions lingered in the air. Would Kirk try to win Rasheeda back? Would Jasmine finally walk away, or would she cling to the marriage no matter how toxic it became? And most importantly, would Rasheeda's rise mark the beginning of a new chapter for her, one free from Kirk's shadow forever? Because if there's one thing this saga has proven, it's that love, betrayal, and redemption don't just make for good TV, they create legends. And Rasheeda Frost, she had just become one. The saga reached a point where it felt less like reality TV and more like a full-blown Shakespearean tragedy unfolding in front of millions. Every new leak, every cryptic post, every accidental sighting added another layer to the drama. Atlanta wasn't just buzzing, it was boiling. And everyone knew the climax was near. Jasmine, once the woman who strutted around flaunting her victory, was unraveling quickly. She posted a teary video late one night, her voice cracking as she spoke directly into the camera. "Y'all don't understand what it's like," she said, mascara streaked down her face. "Everybody calls me the villain, but I just wanted to be loved. I thought I had something real. I thought I won, but maybe all I did was step into somebody else's nightmare." The internet devoured it. Some fans mocked her, saying she was finally getting her karma. Others pitied her, realizing she was now caught in the same cycle that had broken Rasheeda for years. The comments were brutal, with thousands writing things like, "You reap what you sow," and, "Rasheeda warned you," without saying a word. Meanwhile, Kirk was spiraling. He was spotted alone at a bar, no Jasmine in sight, nursing a drink with his phone buzzing nonstop. Witnesses claim he looked stressed, disheveled, and unlike his usual smug self. He looked like a man who realized the walls were closing in. One person said. Rumors swirled that Jasmine had kicked him out of their shared home after finding even more messages between him and Rasheeda. Some so personal that insiders described them as confessions he never should have made. And Rasheeda, she stayed unbothered, moving with a calm grace that only fueled her image as the queen of this entire messy empire. She focused on her businesses, her kids, and her projects, never once giving Kirk or Jasmine the satisfaction of a direct response. But her silence was powerful. It spoke louder than any interview or confrontation ever could. Every time she appeared in public, every flawless photos she posted, it was a reminder that she had survived, that she was thriving, and that neither Kirk nor Jasmine could take her crown. The biggest twist, however, came when producers finally confirmed what fans had been whispering about for weeks. Rasheeda would star in her very own spin-off series. The official announcement broke the internet. The show, rumored to follow her rebuilding journey, her businesses, and her life, instantly became the most anticipated project in the love and hip-hop universe. Fans celebrated it as Rasheeda's ultimate revenge, turning her heartbreak into a platform, her pain into profit. "This is how you do it," one fan tweeted. "You don't fight in the mud, you build your own empire, and let them choke on the dust." As filming began, Kirk reportedly tried to get involved, desperate to secure his role in the narrative. But producers made it clear, this was Rasheeda's story now, not his. That rejection cut deep, insiders say, leaving him scrambling to find his footing while Jasmine begged him to let it go. Their marriage, once flaunted as a fairy tale ending, now looked like a ticking time bomb. The final blow came during a public event, where all three were present for the first time since the chaos began. Tension thickened the air as Rasheeda walked in radiant, surrounded by supporters. Kirk and Jasmine, seated across the room, looked like shadows of their former selves, tired, tense, and visibly uncomfortable. When Rasheeda took the mic to speak, the entire room went silent. She didn't mention names, she didn't point fingers, but her words cut like glass. "Sometimes, losing what you thought you needed is the biggest blessing you'll ever receive," she said. The crowd erupted in applause, while Kirk and Jasmine sat frozen, their faces betraying the truth. They had lost the war. Fans declared that moment as Rasheeda's coronation, the official reclaiming of her throne. She hadn't just survived, she had conquered, and the world, from Atlanta to Instagram, was watching it all unfold in real time. But even as the curtains seemed to close on this chapter, one question lingered, haunting fans and fueling endless speculation. Was this truly the end of Rasheeda and Kirk, or was fate cruel enough to drag them back into each other's orbit one last time? Because in the world of love, betrayal, and reality TV, one thing is certain, nothing ever stays settled for long. Just when the world thought the saga had reached its final act, the drama erupted again, louder, darker, and even more twisted than before. The spin-off cameras were rolling, the fans were glued to every screen, and suddenly the Frost Triangle became the story no one could escape. Kirk, perhaps realizing too late that his empire was slipping through his fingers, made one last desperate move. He requested a private sit-down with Rasheeda, allegedly begging producers to let it be filmed. He wanted to clear the air. But everyone knew what it really was. A man clinging to the one woman who had always made him whole. Rasheeda arrived, poised, dressed in all white like a warrior ready for battle, her face unreadable. Kirk looked tired, almost broken, as he stared at her across the table. "Rasheeda," he began, his voice low, "I messed up. I know I messed up. I thought I was choosing happiness, but all I did was choose chaos. Jasmine, it's not what I thought it would be." He paused, his hands trembling. "I still love you. I'll always love you." The room went silent. Even the producers behind the cameras held their breath. For years, fans had wondered if Kirk would ever finally admit what everyone already knew, that Rasheeda was the heart of his story. And now, here it was. But Rasheeda didn't break, didn't soften. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp with years of unhealed wounds. "You don't get to say that now," she whispered, her voice steady but slicing like a blade. "You had love, you had loyalty, you had me. And you threw it away for someone Who was never me. Don't sit here and think those words can fix the mess you created. Kirk's face crumbled, but Rasheeda wasn't finished. You married her, Kirk. You made your bed, now lie in it. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your safety net, I'm the woman you lost. Forever. The clip leaked before the episode even aired, and the internet erupted. Fans hailed Rasheeda's words as legendary. Memes flooded social media, edits set her monologue to dramatic music, and hashtag the woman you lost trended worldwide. Kirk was dragged mercilessly, his reputation shredded, beyond repair. Jasmine, already clinging to the last threads of their marriage, now found herself humiliated on the biggest stage of all. Insiders say Jasmine confronted Kirk after the taping, screaming at him for embarrassing her yet again. Witnesses overheard her shouting, "You'll never let her go. I was stupid to think you ever would." That fight, reportedly so explosive that security had to intervene, marked the breaking point. Days later, rumors swirled that Jasmine had packed her things and left their home. For Rasheeda, it was vindication. She didn't have to fight anymore. The truth had fought for her, her spin-off soared in ratings, breaking records and pulling in millions of viewers who wanted to see her glow, her healing, her empire reborn. She became not just a star, but a symbol of strength for women everywhere. Brand deals, endorsements, and collaborations poured in. She was unstoppable. Meanwhile, Kirk faded. Paparazzi caught him wandering through Atlanta alone. No wedding ring, no Jasmine, no swagger. The man who once controlled the narrative was now just a shadow of himself. Left to watch as Rasheeda reclaimed her throne and his world collapsed, and Jasmine, she went quiet. The woman who once flaunted victory disappeared from social media, her silence speaking louder than any clapback could. Some said she was regrouping, others said she was broken. Either way, the world moved on without her, leaving her behind in the very scandal she thought she had won. As the final credits rolled on the latest chapter of their lives, one truth became crystal clear. Rasheeda didn't just survive Kirk's betrayal, she turned it into the greatest comeback reality TV had ever seen. And while Kirk and Jasmine drowned in the chaos of their own choices, Rasheeda walked away crowned, celebrated, and unstoppable. But deep down, fans couldn't stop asking, is this really the end of the Frost story, or just another cliffhanger in a saga that will never truly die? Because in the world of reality TV, love triangles never end, they just evolve into the next headline. And with Rasheeda finally free, the question is no longer about Kirk's betrayal, but about how far her rise will take her now that she's finally standing alone, unshakable and unapologetic. By this point, the Frost drama had spiraled so far beyond anyone's imagination that it felt like the entire culture was tuned in, waiting for the next twist. Blogs weren't just reporting anymore, they were counting down like it was a championship game. The streets buzzed with questions. Would Jasmine really leave Kirk? Would Kirk crawl back to Rasheeda? And most importantly, would Rasheeda even care if he did? The spin-off cameras caught one last, unforgettable showdown, filmed at a reunion-style dinner where nearly the entire cast was present. Tension was visible the moment Rasheeda walked in, calm, glowing, dressed like a woman who had already won. Kirk sat across the table, slumped in his chair, his face a cocktail of regret and exhaustion. Jasmine showed up late, visibly nervous, her smile forced, her energy drained. It wasn't just a dinner. It was Judgment Day. As the conversation heated, Jasmine tried to defend herself one last time. "Everybody blames me," she said, her voice shaking. "But Kirk made his own choices. I didn't force him to marry me." The room fell silent, all eyes darting to Rasheeda. She took a breath, and with that unshakable composure that had carried her through the storm, she finally spoke. "You're right, Jasmine," Rasheeda said, her tone calm but heavy with power. "He did make his own choices. And so did you. You chose to come after my family. You chose to flaunt what wasn't yours. And now, look where those choices got you. Miserable, embarrassed, alone." Jasmine's eyes filled with tears, her defenses collapsing in front of everyone. Kirk, desperate, tried to interject. "Y'all need to stop blaming each other. I'm the one who messed up." He paused, his voice breaking. "I lost the best thing I ever had, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." The entire table went still. For the first time, Kirk's bravado was gone. His arrogance had melted into pure remorse. But Rasheeda didn't flinch. "No," she replied, her voice steady, her eyes locked on him. "You don't get to cry now. You don't get to regret now. You had years to change, years to love me right. And instead, you built your happiness on lies. I don't need your regret, Kirk. I need my peace and I finally have it. The cameras captured every word, every tear, every broken expression. Fans watching later would call it the most iconic moment in love and hip-hop history. Memes exploded, soundbites of Rasheeda's monologue turned into TikTok audios. And the internet crowned her once again, the queen of strength, the woman who walked away without looking back. After that dinner, the Frost Triangle finally collapsed under its own weight. Jasmine vanished from social media entirely, her accounts wiped clean. Kirk retreated into silence, seen only sporadically, always alone, his swagger permanently gone. And Rasheeda, she soared. Her spin-off shattered viewership records. Her businesses flourished. She booked speaking engagements where she talked about betrayal, healing, and resilience, turning her pain into a blueprint for empowerment. By the end of the season, Rasheeda stood taller than ever, wealthier, stronger, freer. The scandal that was meant to destroy her had instead reinvented her. Fans who once pitied her now idolized her, seeing her not as the woman Kirk betrayed, but as the woman who rose from betrayal to build an empire. And so the saga ended not with Kirk or Jasmine, but with Rasheeda standing alone in her power, her legacy no longer tied to the man who broke her. The last shot of the spin-off was unforgettable. Rasheeda walking through the streets of Atlanta at night, the city lights glowing around her, her voice narrating, "Sometimes losing everything you thought you wanted is the only way to find out who you really are." The screen faded to black, the credits rolled, and the audience was left stunned, emotional, and forever changed. Because this wasn't just another messy reality TV storyline, this was Rasheeda's rebirth. And while Kirk and Jasmine faded into the shadows, Rasheeda had become larger than life, a queen whose story of heartbreak and triumph would live on far beyond the cameras. And with that, the Frost saga had finally closed its bloodstained chapter. But the legend of Rasheeda's rise, that was only just beginning. By the time the final episode of Rasheeda's spin-off aired, the scandal had transcended reality TV, had become folklore. Fans weren't just watching for entertainment anymore. They were invested in her survival like it was their own. The streets buzzed, barber shops replayed her lines on their phones. Salons debated every twist, and social media erupted with thousands of edits crowning her as the unbreakable queen. Kirk, once so loud and shameless, had gone almost completely silent. He was spotted occasionally in Atlanta, usually alone, often looking restless and aged beyond his years. The man who once strutted around like he was untouchable now seemed like a ghost of himself. Every time he popped up in public, the whispers followed. That's the man who lost everything. People didn't ask him for pictures anymore, they gave him looks of pity or disgust. His empire, his reputation, even his swagger had all crumbled. Jasmine, too, was gone from the spotlight. Rumors swirled that she had moved out of Atlanta altogether, retreating to start over far away from the cameras, the blogs, and the endless shade. Some said she couldn't handle the humiliation of being publicly abandoned by the same man she fought so hard to win. Others claimed she was still clinging to Kirk behind the scenes, refusing to let go no matter how toxic things had become. But the truth hardly mattered anymore. In the eyes of the public, Jasmine was finished, her story written as a cautionary tale of a woman who thought she won, only to realize she had been handed a curse. Rasheeda, however, was thriving. The spin-off had catapulted her into a new league, entirely. No longer just a reality star, she had become a brand, a symbol of resilience, empowerment, and the art of turning pain into power. Major magazines featured her on their covers. Talk shows invited her to speak about healing after betrayal. Endorsements poured in, her boutiques expanded, and her name became synonymous with survival. She wasn't just telling her story anymore, she was selling it, owning it, and redefining it. The fans couldn't get enough. They hailed her as a role model, reposting her quotes as mantras. Peace over pain. A queen never begs, she rebuilds. The crown was always mine. Every word she spoke was turned into viral content, fueling her legend. But the true final twist came during the reunion special. Sitting on stage in front of the glaring lights, surrounded by her castmates, Rasheeda was asked the question everyone had been waiting for. Do you forgive Kirk? The studio fell silent. Even the audience leaned forward, holding their breath. Rasheeda took a long pause, her face calm, her eyes steady. Finally, she spoke. Forgive. No, forgiveness isn't for him, it's for me. And I forgive myself, for staying too long, for believing the lies, for giving pieces of me to someone who didn't deserve them. That's where my forgiveness ends. As for Kirk, she stopped, letting the silence hang heavy. I'll never forgive him. Not in this lifetime. The crowd erupted into applause. Some stood on their feet, clapping through tears. It was the closure everyone had been waiting for. Rasheeda didn't just answer the question, she ended the saga with the same strength she carried through every storm. When the cameras cut and the credits rolled, the Frost story was officially history. Kirk and Jasmine faded into obscurity, left behind in the wreckage of their choices. Rasheeda, however, rose higher than anyone thought possible. Her name, her story, her legacy, it was untouchable now. And so the final chapter closed not with scandal, but with triumph. Rasheeda had walked through the fire, been humiliated in front of the world, and still emerged unbroken. Fans would never forget her tears, her pain, her rage, but most of all, they would never forget how she rebuilt herself, crown intact, stronger than ever. Because in the end, this wasn't Kirk's story. It wasn't Jasmine's story. It was Rasheeda's story all along. And the legend of her rise, the queen, who survived betrayal and turned it into destiny, would echo far beyond the cameras, living on in every fan who ever whispered, "She made it, she really made it." The Frost scandal was over. The Rasheeda era had begun. And there you have an explosive saga of love, betrayal, and survival that has shaken Atlanta to its core. But now the question is, what happens next? Will Kirk try to crawl back into Rasheeda's life once Jasmine is gone for good? Will Jasmine finally break free from the nightmare she thought was her fairy tale? Or has Rasheeda closed this chapter forever, stepping into a future that no one can take away from her? I want to hear from you because this story is bigger than reality TV. Do you think Kirk deserves even a shred of forgiveness? Or is Rasheeda right to walk away and never look back? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because trust me, the debate is about to get heated. If you've been shocked, entertained, or glued to every single twist in this saga, don't forget to hit that like button, smash that subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next messy update. We've got more tea, more drama, and more jaw-dropping secrets coming your way. Remember, this is only the beginning of the next chapter. And when it comes to the world of love and hip-hop, you know one thing for sure. The drama never sleeps. So, tell me right now in the comments, Team Rasheeda, Team Jasmine, or Team Nobody? Let's settle this once and for all.